everyone. How are you? It's not an existential question, I know. Creed said it's going to be really heavy. I have the incredible privilege of finishing up this conference for you today. And I can tell it's been a hell of a day. Your brains are full of learning. You've probably got a bunch of questions. You probably want to chat with the speakers. So I'm going to try and do two things. I'm going to try and keep you entertained. I'm going to try and send you out on a high note. And the third secret thing that I just made up is that I'm going to try and make sure that you learn something and you've got some real takeaways for today. All right, so the nice thing about being the closing keynote speaker is usually the tech works by this point. Let's find out. Say, hey, look at that. So look, I want to take a moment because events like this, they're incredible, but they don't happen without an incredible amount of organization and just planning and doing things and running last-minute errands. So would you please join me in a round of applause for our volunteers, our organizers, and of course, Creed, who's part of the community. Also, this stuff doesn't happen without money, so let's give a big thank you to our sponsors as well, because they're what actually lets me come back. Okay, so Creed already talked about it, and somehow our...
You spoke too soon about
yeah.
You jinxed it, Chris.
I did it. Hold on, we're happening. My talk is about accent and how to exceed. It's also about the darkness, the existential crisis of being a designer and your career paths. In a moment, we'll actually get into it properly. Here we go. Awesome. All right, so as Pre told you, I am the Chief of Design of the Canadian Digital Service. It's a federal government initiative. The blurb I always tell people is we're here to deliver simple, easy-to-use services for everyone in Canada. What this really means is that we take design and technology and we make sure that there's a human element in both of those things, especially the technology, and we just try and make government better for everyone. The next time you have to interact with your government, be it a municipal, like the City of Toronto, provincial, the Ontario government, or even the federal, we want to make sure it's better than it was. And we're doing that at the federal level, but there's teams doing it around the world at every single level, and that's just an incredibly heartening thing. So, I would describe myself these days as a service designer, and I've had plenty of other titles in my time. I used to be called a UX designer, I was called a product designer, visual designer, UI, UX, art director I had, creative director for a while, and of course, old school, way back in the day, a graphic designer. And the thing is, oh, we jumped ahead there. There we go. We jumped ahead a lot. Okay. See, I really did speak too soon, Creed. All right, so, paths to self-discovery. This is what Creed had asked me to talk about today. And it's great, because he just gave me this title, and I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to change that. And the thing is, as you grow as a designer, there are so many different paths to this self-discovery and to your career that I can't really speak to them. All I can really speak to is my own path. And so I'm going to do that today. Man, the tech game. All right, so there's no such thing as one path. So starting out, I actually went to school in Edmonton, Alberta. The University of Alberta there had one of the first design-centric programs. I graduated with a Bachelor of Design in Visual Communication. And that was really a graphic design-heavy kind of course. So I did a lot around typography, color theory, all those things that some of our other speakers have talked about today. But when I graduated, I ended up working for a research lab, and that was doing cutting-edge technology. So we were doing open source content management systems with PHP and MySQL, and this is like, early 2000s, so it's unheard of. We were doing things with HTML and this brand new thing called CSS, where you could actually strip out the presentation layer from the content layer. So it was a fascinating time, and after a couple of years, I was like, you know what? I've got all this great knowledge, but I'll bet you other people are doing it way better than me. It's that little bit of imposter syndrome kicking in. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go check out Vancouver, but I made my choice and I came to Toronto. This incredible, amazing city. And I showed up with my portfolio of tech stuff, my open source content management systems, all these great words, and I was like, oh man, it's gonna be amazing. The Toronto Institute was like, damn. Yeah, we don't care about that at all. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be problematic. And problematic is a theme from today, you'll see. So I did what I had to do, which was I rethought how I was going to present myself. I reconsidered my portfolio. I actually redid my entire portfolio and started shopping it around. And I was shopping it around to traditional agencies, design agencies, digital agencies, design boutiques, and eventually I managed to secure a job with one of the top firms in the city, and I had the incredible, glamorous title of production artist. Now I don't know, like by a show of hands, does this title still resonate with people? Do people know what a production artist is? All right, there's a couple. I'm going to explain. A production artist is the lowest member of the design team. And the real designers design their beautiful things, and they're like, okay, production artist, it's got to get reformatted to a slightly different dimension, so try not to fuck it up. I'm like, oh. And then it's like, all right, well, cool. So now that I've reformatted it, now you send it to the printer. And if you get it wrong when you send it to the printer, you're in a lot of trouble. It's got to be exact and perfect. This is the print world, so I was like, oh shit, like print budgets are expensive, we can't get it wrong. You get it onto a printing press, you're paying by the minute, so okay, we have to get it right. And I just dived in. I learned absolutely everything I could. I put the technology stuff that I had learned aside, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn everything about die lines and pre-press. And I started to put together like just a vast amount of knowledge around how print works. And it felt odd at the time because I was like, oh, I really thought I was gonna be doing these cool technology projects, but it was working for me. And it was important because I was starting out. So with that in mind, that's gonna lead me to the conceit of this talk today, which is that I have some advice. And all of it is as simple as ABC. And this is, I'm gonna take a second. Are there any film nerds in the audience? Oh, wicked, great, thank God, you're gonna be my saviors. Hopefully you're old enough to remember the film Glengarry Glen Ross and the iconic scene with Alec Baldwin, who's yelling at a bunch of salespeople who aren't making their sales figures, and he has this rule. He says, A always, B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Now I'm not gonna do that to you today. I'm gonna get you to chant and yell at me, because hey, we gotta bring these energy levels up. But I am gonna talk about A, always, B, B, C, crafting. What I mean by this is that first job I had as a production artist was really my opportunity to hone my craft. This is really me delving into what it is to be a designer, learning how to work with budgets, learning how to work at scale, learning how to collaborate with other designers, and actually just getting really good at the software, getting really good at learning how to make sure that file is absolutely perfect before I went to the printer, so that I don't get my ass handed to me, so that I get to keep my job. But it's also things about learning about what the design process means, because all that is still very much the same. The design process in print is very, very similar, if not identical, to the design process that we have in digital. Just the output is slightly different. You take your time, you ideate, you sketch, you prototype, you present, you refine, you test, you keep moving. And so that was my opportunity to really get into the craft. And I got to move beyond just doing the bitch work, pardon my language, the grunt work of the design studio, and I started to get to work on my own things. And some of those were really amazing projects like this. And it's like, this is probably just a great texture on my face. This is a houndstooth pattern. It's a geometric interlocking pattern, and I spent literally hours in Illustrator perfecting every single geometric point, making sure it worked perfectly, seamlessly, and that it was just exact. Because it was gonna go on a wine bag to be sold at the LCBO. And it's like, all right, it's not glamorous, it's not exciting, but there it was. And this is just, well, it's dizzying actually. Because when you're staring at this at like 1500% magnification in Illustrator for hours, like after a while you're just like, oh, I just see houndstooth everywhere. Like it's actually ingrained in your retinas because you're squinting at your screen. Anyway. So look, the point was, it made me a little bit crazy, but I was really honing my craft. Okay, I'm gonna take you to my second ABC. A, always. B, B. C, and is curious. And I really mean genuine curiosity. If you can bring genuine curiosity to your job, whatever job you have, you are going to be a phenomenal designer. The reality is every single choice we make, every job we take, every freelance gig we pull, every like moonlighting side hustle illustration photo gig you do, whatever it is, this is contributing to your path. And those skills are actually going to help you out later in life. And you don't know why, and you don't know when, but they will. And I'm going to tell you stories about that later. But as you begin to learn those skills, they're going to come in handy. And that happened with me. The print work that I had been doing, the production art stuff, well, it actually got me my next gig as an art director in an ad agency where I got to work on things like Roy Thompson Hall and Massey Hall, the Toronto International Film Festival, and eventually got me onto the Canadian Opera Company. And this account was fascinating because the Opera Company didn't have its home yet. They didn't have the Four Seasons Performing Center for the Arts, I think that's what it's still called, down at Richmond and Spadina. Not Spadina, Richmond and University. Pardon me, it's been a while since I lived in Toronto. And as the Opera Company was about to unveil its new opera house, they told us, look, we'd really like you to design something special. And because of my print background, because of that pre-press knowledge, because of all that grunt work I'd done, I got this task. And it was to make an invitation for the opening of the gala, the grand opening, pardon me, of the Four Seasons Center. So, the outside is crushed velvet. Then we've blind embossed the logo, silver stamped the logo as well. And while that's like pretty complex to make in a print production environment, when you open it up, it's a freaking pop-up. And I did countless iterations and mock-ups to make sure that this opened properly, that it folded properly, that it closed properly. And honestly, when we actually sent it to press, the pre-press guys were just like, this is gonna be fun. But they found the tolerances I built in, the cuts I'd made, the cuts I'd specified, actually, it went off without a hitch, and we were so grateful. But honestly, I could not have done this if I hadn't been curious. And really, that curiosity had helped me perfect my craft. Okay, I'm moving quickly today. A, always, anyone want to join me? B, C, wait, yeah, see, I cheated there. So always be ready to take a chance. This has been something that has always resonated with me. I got into design, I had started off in comp sci, I'd even been thinking about doing med as a degree, and I took a chance one day and it just became a designer. I was like, this is actually what I want to do. This is the intersection of the things I want to do. And for me, I think it's incredibly important early on in your career to take as many chances as you can. So this could be jumping into a different sector, jumping into a job. But the reality is, right now you're probably unencumbered by things like mortgage payments, and Jesus in Toronto. You probably don't have small children, you may, but you probably don't have car payments and all these things. You might actually be the most carefree you're ever going to be in your life. Sorry, spoiler alert, it gets a lot tougher. Don't get old. But honestly, one of the biggest chances I took was that in 2007, I'd been made redundant, I'd been laid off from my job, I'd worked at an agency and they lost some accounts, so they said, okay, you have to go home. Sorry about that. That happens. That's just the reality of our industry. So my partner and I, we picked up, we sold off everything we owned, and we jumped, and we moved to London, England. Without a job, without a place to live, and we arrived December 1st, 2007. Just in time for the world's largest global economic crisis. Excellent timing. Very glad I took that risk. Very glad I was ready to take a chance. But you know what? It actually worked out. It was tough at first, I'm not gonna lie. It's tough when you do something like that, but I fell right back into technology, and I was working with really awesome, cool people doing neat startups. I got to work with a startup that had figured out how to create desktop publishing software in the browser. So if you've ever used InDesign or even Pages, Apple Pages, yeah, you could do that in the browser. And what they did, once you built a little layout, they sent it to a newspaper printing press that was sitting idle. So when the Financial Times, the Guardian, the New York Times is done printing their newspaper for the day, those giant printing presses just sit there, not doing anything. And these guys had come up with a way so that they could send over a file, and in the idle period, the printing presses would roll, which means you got your own designed newspaper. You could have like the Chris Govias Daily Times if you wanted. It was wild. And again, I got to work on cool stuff like that because of my print background. And I was just like, holy crap, I never anticipated that print design coming forward and letting me do a technology product. So it was super cool. I ended up taking a job with a company called Revu. And this is like Web 2.0, where you can't get the name you want, so you choose a name that's kind of similar to your product, because they actually did customer reviews. They did customer reviews collection and publication for e-commerce. And I went and I met the team, and they were awesome and brilliant. I was super excited about them. But I was like, customer reviews, I mean, this feels weird. But I ended up becoming the head of design there because I just took a chance, and I was like, you know what? This is going to be a crazy environment. I don't know anything about this. I don't know how customer reviews affect e-commerce, but apparently they do in a very positive way. I'm going to take a chance, and I'm going to learn from these people. And I jumped in, and I actually loved it. We grew the company like crazy. When I left, there was an acquisition on the table. I'd come in at like employee number 18, and when I left, there were 120 people. So we'd seen rapid growth, and everything that comes with that about trying to make design work in a company that's growing that quick. Wow, I'm so glad that I took that chance. Because Revu is also an environment that leads me to my next ABC, which is to always be challenged. See, I didn't do it that time. I threw you off. I thought you were all going to be saying, hey, always now. For me, I absolutely aspire to be the dumbest person in the room. I want to be in an environment where I am challenged day in and day out, where I'm working with people who are better at their craft than I am, people who are smarter than me. And that was it. The developers at Revu were just like top-notch brilliant. So I felt like I had to run to keep up. So when responsive design was just coming out, I was like, cool, I'm going to learn everything I can, we're going to iterate, and we're going to do something. Boom, learned it. Awesome. Quick, before these developers realize I'm not as good as they are. Again, that little bit of imposter syndrome. It can be really helpful and useful if you harness it properly. And then it was suddenly like, okay, continuous integration, continuous deployment, I don't know what that is. Oh, we're going to release all the time, regularly, like 10, 15 times a day. I'm in it, I'm learning, let's do it. I'm going to find a way to make our design process more streamlined so we can do those things. So after 3 years at Revu, I was just like, okay, I'm no longer the dumbest person in the room, so I should probably take a chance and find yet another challenging environment. And I moved to become a design lead at Expedia. And Expedia is the world's largest travel company. There's 10,000 full-time employees worldwide, with another 2,000 contractors. They're across the globe, so you're dealing with time zones, and being a design lead meant like really committing. The best part is, I've been brought on board to do something particularly interesting and complex, which was the design of APIs. And I didn't know anything about APIs, so that was problematic. But the reality is, growth happens at the edge of comfort. Growth is where you actually get to kick forward, and if you're discomfort, if you're feeling a little bit out of your depth, that's a really positive thing, and that was me at Expedia. So the first thing I did was like, okay, I guess I have to learn absolutely everything about APIs. I'm going to read the HTTP spec, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol spec, forward and backward. I might be one of the few designers who's done that. I have no idea. It's some in-depth reading, but it means that I can tell you why your application should be returning a 403 versus a 404, and you know how every time you style a link like a button, you're kind of breaking the internet a little bit, and that really bothers me, but I'll let it go since. And also I can talk for hours about the difference between the web and the internet, and those sort of distinctions were really important because as I was working, trying to create products for developers, APIs, it's very important to be able to speak their language, and a lot of our speakers today have talked about that, so. Okay, next ABC. You gonna say it with me this time? Yeah, you are, come on. A, always. B, B. You don't know C, I tricked you. C is considered. The thing is, I would ask you, please take the time in your career to really stop and think about what you're doing. Like I said, every single little gig we take, every opportunity, every side hustle we do, it adds to our path. And it's incredibly important to think about those things. And especially when you want to think about career progression and success. Are you working at the right place? with the right people in the right industry? Do you like the work you're doing? Do you like your boss? Is this the right environment for you? Are you being challenged? Are you still curious, or are you getting bored? It can be incredibly hard when you're in the middle of it and you're just trying to make a living, trying to perfect your craft, to actually stop and think about, is this the right environment for me? But I can't stress it enough. If you can find the time, if you can find the self-awareness to just take a moment, breathe, take that community breath, like Ainsley was saying, and then actually think about where you are, you'll go a lot further. It's particularly important when we talk about success. So your idea of success is going to change throughout your career. Early on, you might think success is getting really good at your craft. And then success becomes you're leading design on a project. And then it might be you're leading a team of designers on a project. And then it might be you're leading an entire design team. You're leading design at a company. Those are definitely ideas of success, but they're not the only ones. You might decide that design success for you means that you're an individual contributor, working in meaningful work in a great environment with good people. You feel positive about what you do, and that's that. It doesn't have to be that you're wearing a white shirt standing on stage talking to early stage designers about their career and making them chant ABC. Look, I genuinely never thought this would be success for me, but here we are. Your ideas are going to change. Take a moment, stop, and reevaluate. Decide what you want to be. Success is very, very personal, and make it your own, okay? All right, we're coming to our last couple of ABCs. A, always. B, see, I'm getting tired of it too. C, and lastly, collaborative. Of course, yeah, be collaborative. But I want to go into this a little more deeply with a fun personal story. You can't be successful without other people. So much of what we do goes through a process, goes through developer ops, gets put up. You need developers, you need infrastructure, you need product managers. So nothing we do is without other people. You need to be able to learn to play nicely, share your toys. You need to be able to take someone's idea and build upon it and enhance it, all while honoring the idea and the person who gave it to you. The worst thing in the world is when someone takes your idea and is like, yeah, we're gonna do this, this, and this, and they like build it up and everyone's like, yeah, great job, Jim. And you're like, what? That was my idea. Oh. So learn those soft skills. Be collaborative, listen to people. Some of my favorite collaborations have resulted in crazy, crazy outcomes, and I want to talk about one of those right now. This is a tiny plane. Of course it is. There's a bit of a backstory to this photo. I had been living in London. I'd met some really fascinating people, and two of them were like a bit eclectic and strange, James and Norm. James and Norm had decided that they wanted to take a bunch of tech people and put them somewhere very isolated over the course of a week and build something really cool. Wouldn't that be fun? I was like, you know what? I'm curious about that. Sounds challenging, and yeah, I'm gonna take a chance. So 13 of us jump in this tiny plane, and my friend Matt, who's right here, who took the photo, Matt literally reached forward and tapped the pilot on the shoulder. There's no separation, like this is a tiny, tiny flying bus. And so, okay, we get in this tiny plane, we leave out of Southampton Airport, which is in the southwest of the United Kingdom, and we fly here to the ocean. No, there's a tiny island there, and that island is called Alderney. There it is. Can't really see it. It's underneath there. And Alderney is a Channel island, but it's off the coast of France, but it's still considered British, okay? We show up there, and we decide we're gonna stay in a Napoleonic-era seafort, right in there. Fun history fact, in World War II, the Nazis occupied France, and they actually converted that seafort into a military installation as well. They took the Napoleonic bones and built up on it. Other fun fact, when the tide comes in, if you are at Fort Clonque, that's the name, Clonque, C-L-O-N-Q-U-E, if you're there when the tide comes in, this road is entirely underwater. So you're just there. You're stuck. So you better have something interesting to do. And then that's just another shot, and I'm in the way here, but there's a beautiful little window there, incredible sun. So we hold up there, you could get to the top and have your coffee in the mornings. Fort Clonk was an incredible place. And we had no internet. We were nice and isolated. We were often cut off from any sort of help because of the tides. And over the course of a week, the 13 of us, well, we ate together, we cooked together, we hung out together, we worked together, and we slept in the same rooms. And we built something. We built a funny little thing that we thought was kind of cool for us. We built a thing called Spacelog. Spacelog takes the original NASA transcripts of space missions. These are typewritten pages that NASA scanned and just dumped on the moon. And we ran OCR, optical character recognition, on them. So we had real text, and we converted that real text into a searchable, linkable format. This is the home page of Spacelog. You can see, what mission do you want to look at? You scroll down. We even did some neat ones from Russia. So Vostok 1, which is the first time a human went into space. And we're like, cool. This is the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 recently. Woo, we went to the moon. So this was the page for that, and you could actually read individual lines. You could link to them and share them, and you could see the mission happen in real time. It was just a lot of fun to collaborate on. I worked with 2 other awesome designers on it. We made it super visual and interesting, but the UI was there, the UX was there, the flows were great. And we're like, what a fun little project. There were 13 of us. We celebrated by watching Apollo 13. An incredible story. And then we got back on the tiny flying bus, got back to the mainland and hit a train. And while we were on the train, one of our devs, started up an instance and was like, cool, we're live. We built a thing in a week. An amazing collaboration. Here's the fucking crazy part though. Overnight, with no promotion at all, we had 34,000 unique visitors. Overnight. Suddenly this thing blew up, bigger than we ever expected. The Huffington Post wrote about us. Time magazine featured us. The New Scientist, The Atlantic, Kottke, it was just, and you never know what you're gonna get out of those side collaborations, those tiny moments of magic. Okay, one last ABC for you. A, always. B, and C is, tricky. C is changing. Always be changing. If you can have your craft down, if you can be curious, if you can be ready to take a chance, which really now that I'm looking at, I should have said if you can be courageous. If you can be challenged, if you can be considered, if you can be collaborative and changing, well, those are incredible values to have. You do all of those things, and frankly, you're going to be an absolutely brilliant designer. And I, for one, can't wait to see what you come up with.